All right, here we go. Lesson number 34, Algebra 1/2. These basically, 34, 35, 36, cover two subjects. One of them is mixed fractions, one of them is rates. So I'm just going to start off with the mixed fractions. Basically, how to add or subtract mixed numbers. Or mixed numbers or mixed fractions. Okay, here's an example. Let's say you have 2 1/5 and you're adding 3 1/10. What do you do? All right, the simplest thing, these is the simplest, is starting with adding. You just add the big numbers. 2 plus 3 is 5. Then we add the fractions. 1/5 plus 1/10. Now you will recognize they have a not the same denominator. So I need the denominators to look the same. So I'm going to take the left one and make it look like a 10. To do that, I have to multiply it by 2. 2 times 5 is 10. So, but if I multiply the bottom times 2, I change the fraction. So I must also multiply the top times 2. So this becomes 2 plus 1 over 10, or 3/10. That's how you do it. So when adding fractions, it's pretty simple. That's the simplest version. It's kind of 4 levels of difficulty on this. That's level 1. Level 2 difficulty. Let's say you have a fraction that works out to be a little bit bigger than what you want. So for example, 472 2/5 plus 312 3/4. Okay, add the big numbers. 472 plus 312, well, 4 plus 3 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8, 2 plus 2 is 4. 784. That's the big numbers. Now I'm doing 2/5 plus 3/4. Well, I notice the denominators are not the same. But if I multiply this one times 5, it becomes 20. And if I multiply this one times 4, it becomes 20. So this becomes 8 plus 15 over 20. Okay, and 8 plus 15 is 23/20. So now that's the answer. However, this is too big. I usually don't write this as this improper fraction. The numerator is bigger than the denominator, so I'm going to have to basically take 20/20 out and put it there. So it becomes 785. If I take 20 out, then I can move that up 1. And 23 minus 20 is just 3. And so there. So I just take 20 of those out. In other words, if you want to think of it this way, 23/20 is just equal to 20/20 minus 3/20. So in other words, I take this one out and throw it, add it to that one. Okay, because I'm just adding. Plus 3/20. And so that's what you do. That's the second level of difficulty. Adding is fairly simple. First one is you don't have to do that, and you just get a nice simple number. Second one is you kind of have to bump this one up 1. Okay, so now let's look at subtracting these things. Well, again, kind of 2 levels of difficulty. Let's pick one, and this is primarily from lesson number 35, but let's say you have something like 4 1/2 minus 1 1/8. Same thing, 4 minus 1 is 3. Then I have 1/2 minus 1/8. Again, no common denominator. I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this one times 4. So this becomes 4 minus 1 over 8, or 3/8. So that's the third level of difficulty. You just basically subtract the big numbers and then do the other one, subtract, and you'll end up with, this will work out just fine. Fourth level difficulty is what happens when this number doesn't work out quite so pretty. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say you have something like 5 1/2 minus 2 4/5. Okay, 5 minus 2 is 3. So 1/2 minus 4/5. Need a common denominator. Multiply this one, top and bottom times 2. Multiply this one, top and bottom times 5. The denominators are the same. And I end up with something over 10. I get 5 minus 8 over 10, or negative 3/10. So what I've got going on here is I've got 3, but I have 3/10 less than that. So 3/10 less than 3 is going to be 2 and 7/10. Just do that in your head. Okay, another way to think of it is, well, I can borrow, I'm going to ignore that one for now. I can borrow one for here and write this. This is 2 and 10/10, right? Okay, minus 3/10, or 2 and what's 10 minus 3? 7/10. So in other words, I'm going to borrow 1 from here, reduce it by 1, and then just do this fraction. Okay, and that's the fourth level of difficulty, is when it doesn't work out. 4 minus 1 is 3. We end up with a negative number here. Then you're going to have to borrow 1 to make it work. So I'm going to have you practice on those. I'm not going to explain it a whole lot more. Go back and see if you can really follow what I was doing, but I will do a little bit more in class. But just to make sure you get it by giving you lots of examples. The way to learn these is practice and then see, oops, I made a mistake. Oops, I made a mistake. Eventually, it'll become more intuitive on when to go ahead and borrow or add on these things. Okay, next, rates. Rates is just, it's basically a, usually it's something like a speed. So in other words, you're going a distance in a certain amount of time, or you're doing how many boxes you can fill in an hour in a certain amount of time, or it's something for something else is what we call a rate. It's how much you can do in a time, or how much something costs in $1, or how much, that sort of thing. That's what we call rates. Generally, it's going to be time or money related, but it could be other things. You could say how many tickets per day. Well, again, that's a tickets per time. That would be the rate. Well, here's first start is just how do you do it? So you might see something like in lesson number 34, they introduce this concept and they say, okay, Roger, in this practice problem C, he travels 48 yards in 6 seconds. Okay, so he runs and he goes 48 yards in 6 seconds. Not particularly the fastest, but not particularly the slowest. Okay, so what are the rates? Well, basically you say, well, it's 48 yards over 6 seconds. You can reduce that, and that would be 8 yards for every 1 second. So that's his rate. Another way to say it is, or you could say it's 1 second for every 8 yards. Either one of these is a rate. You know, it's like you're trying to find out how many, in 1 second, how far does he go, or how far does he go in 1 second? It's kind of saying the same thing, but there are different ways of saying it. So we say, okay, here's the 2 rates. This is all lesson 34 is where they'll give you something, and you just write it as a fraction. And there are 2 possibilities. Okay? Lesson number 36, however, gets a little more complicated, where they have you do what we call a word problem with it. And so this is how you do those. So you're going to see something like in lesson 36, this is problem number 5. Okay, there are 3 parts, A, B, and C. So let's start with reading the problem. You can read it on your books. It says, Marco Polo bought 40 skins, so I'm guessing we'll call them beaver skins, for 8 lira. Okay, lira is a dollar amount, or it's a money amount you find in the East. And so 40 skins for 8 lira. Okay, so let's start with the first one. What are the rates? Well, it's 40 skins. I'll use SK for skins and L for lira, which is the same as 5 skins per 1 lira. Or I could say 1 lira is 5 skins. So those are the 2 rates. That's practice problem A. Okay, the next one says, well, how many could he buy if he has 200 lira? Question is, how many skins? Use one of these. Remember our unit multipliers? they work here. So if I want to know skins, the one you want, I want to know how many skins he can buy, I use one of these two. Well, I know 5 skin is 1 lira. The liras will cancel, and I'll end up with 200 times 5, which is 1,000 skins. So I've solved the problem by doing basically a unit multiplier thing with it. Since I know 5 skins is 1 lira is 5 skins, I picked the fraction. I picked this one because I had lira and I want skins. Another practice problem C says, well, what if he has 200 skins? And the question is, how many lira? Well, if I want lira, I'm going to put the lira on the top and the skins on the bottom. Well, I know my fraction, lira over skins, is 1 to 5. So I'm going to end up with 200 over 5 lira, which is 40 lira. So 200 skins will cost 40 lira. This is lesson number 36, practicing this kind of stuff. So I will see you in class. See you later.